what all monotheists are told to do, and admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God, I'd say, no, fuck you. Who can create us sick, as apparently we are, and then order us on pain of eternal torture to be well again. You're a child made in the image of God. Oh no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman.
Double standards. It's amazing how Christians don't see the double standards that they basically live by or expect other people to live by. I have received permission from a Christian, I assume he's a Christian by what he writes to me, named Brother John. I have received his permission to be an atheist. Yeah, he's giving me his permission. He's written quite a few little things here, but I'm just going to zero in on one of the things that he writes. To be an atheist is one thing. I guess he's letting me be an atheist. He's going to tolerate my being an atheist. That's what I get from his little comment here. To be an atheist is one thing. We'll let you do that. To actively attempt to destroy people's faith is another. Oh, you're not going to let me have an opinion or voice my opinion or describe the things that I learned when I went in search of answers when I was still a Christian. It's nice that we have a nice neat little box that atheists have to live in, and they can't stray outside of the walls of that box. It's one thing to be an atheist but another thing to actively attempt to destroy people's faith. What is it when a Christian comes knocking on the door of, say, an atheist's house? Isn't the Christian attempting to destroy the atheist's beliefs? When I see Christians on the bus trying to witness to the person in the seat next to them, then the person in the seat next to them is by the window and they can't get away, so the person trying to witness has a trapped audience. When I see the Christian on the street corners yelling through a megaphone about how everybody is a sinner and evil and destined for hell unless they repent and turn from their wicked ways to become Christians just like he or she, isn't that the same thing? Isn't that actively attempting to destroy other people's beliefs? How come the opposite isn't true for Christians? Oh, it's one thing to be a Christian, but it's quite another thing to actively attempt to destroy other people's beliefs, which is what Christians do. Do you think Brother John goes to Christian YouTube channels and attacks Christians for putting down atheists and attacking atheists and criticizing atheists? Do you think he does? Or do you think he just goes to atheist channels and criticizes atheists for trying to put a different opinion out there in the world? I'm trying to read what else he says. You attack things that you have a personal emotional interest in, not in things you are indifferent to. That's true. I do have a personal emotional interest in this. After falling for the lie when I was 12 years old, hook, line, and sinker, and living my life totally without any grasp of the thought never even crossed my mind if Jesus existed or not. That wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a question if God existed or not, because when someone sat down with me when I was 12 years old, they didn't present evidence. Okay, some of us think God exists, and I would like to show you what we base it on. Here is actual scientific statistics. We did some tracking of some strange powers that there's no explanation for. And we did this, we monitored this strange power for over 20 years, and we find that the power has fluctuations, and when more people on the earth pray, the power increases, and when people on the earth cease to pray, the power decreases. So this tells us that there's a God that gains strength by our prayer and our praise of it. No, nobody actually did that. Nobody said, here's our evidence, here's scientific studies that we conducted, here's some strange readings that we found that have no explanations, no natural explanations, and only occur around the earth where there is a God, and other planets that this God doesn't have so much interest in, doesn't have this kind of interesting energy around it. Nothing like that. Just, they sat me down and said, well, God loves you. We're just going to jump right over the whole trying to prove to me or show to me or even discuss the fact that there's a question that a God might or might not exist. We're just going to say to the little 12-year-old kid, God loves you. And the little 12-year-old kid is going to just assume, well, these are adults. They know what they're talking about. Certainly somebody sometime must have researched and decided or figured out that there was a God and that gods existed. And so I'm sure sometime they figured out which God it was. I mean, when you're 12 years old, you're going to believe whatever you're told. And that's basically what people have done all these, I mean, so many people believe that Jesus actually lived, so he must have lived. If this many people believe it, it must be true. And then Brother John writes in his little note, if you look to reputable historians and not people wanting to make money off of controversy, you will not find them denying the historical Jesus. So you don't think that those reputable historians didn't just hear their entire life from adults that they respected that Jesus existed, and they just assumed it must be true because everybody thinks it's true? You don't think that a reputable historian isn't even going to bother to look up something that they just assume is true? It's just a given, so why should I even look it up? Everybody knows he really lived because everybody believes it. You don't think that maybe those reputable historians just assumed, just like I assumed and so many other people assumed? Or do you have to be a reputable historian to have a valid opinion? Because I did assume, just like apparently these reputable historians he mentioned, but without actually giving any names to me, I assumed for 35 years of my life, my pretty much entire adulthood, that Jesus lived, was walking around and talking and everything. I assumed it was true. So I can't, it's easy for me to imagine that a reputable historian who doesn't really bother to look into it because he just assumes it's true because everybody believes it, is capable of the same thing, of just assuming it's true. You know? So yeah, that's what I did. I assumed, and I don't think that the fact that some reputable historians have bought into it hook, line, and sinker without bothering to really look into it themselves really says anything. It just means that they're like me and like so many other people. They just heard something. They've heard it their whole lives. They grew up having it presented to them like it's a given, like it's a fact, and they just didn't really take the time to research because they probably assumed somebody else did that once upon a time. And of course it's true. Who did the research? Who actually looked into this? We're just going to all assume something is true. Well, we have this old book that says it. When you're 12 years old, well, all these adults are telling you it's true, so it must be true. And so, yes, I do have a bit of an emotional interest in it. When you're lied to for over 35 years and you wrap your identity around this misconception that you are not good enough unless you're perfect, you know, and your self-esteem is literally crippled because you cannot be good enough because your mind is constantly questioning. what is going on? Is it true? Why doesn't this make sense? And then when you go to the adults and you say, well, I don't understand, they tell you, well, you need to pray more. You're just not a good enough Christian. You're not going to church enough. You're not praying enough. If you were praying and going to church enough, you wouldn't have these questions and doubts. You would be a stronger Christian. You're just, you're never going to cease to be a baby Christian unless you pray more and go to church more. If you have doubts, that means you're a baby Christian. You don't know. You're not like the rest of us. You're not mature in your faith. Yeah, my entire Christianity was spent trying to be good enough, to not have questions, to be a strong enough Christian, to not have doubts and questions in my head. And you don't get answers when you go ask the pastor or somebody who you look up to and think this is a really strong Christian. You go to them with your questions. You don't get answers. They might point out a few verses in the Bible. But how does that prove that Jesus actually existed? How does that prove that a God actually exists, or that it's the Christian God that's in the Bible and not one of the thousands of other gods? Yeah, I do have an emotional interest, a personal emotional interest in trying to, I don't believe that I try to attack other people. I very rarely go to other channels on YouTube. I don't go to Christian channels on YouTube. When I do go to other channels, it's usually like the Atheist Experience, Pardon the Rat Noise, or Jacqueline Glenn. I go to other atheist channels. I don't seek out and try to destroy other people's beliefs. But I do state on my channel what my beliefs are, and I state why I believe what I do, and I describe what I went through as a Christian. And I think that's my right. I think that's my right to describe what I went through and my learning experiences along the way. I've said this before, real truth can take scrutiny and it can take questioning. It is not afraid of these things. It's not afraid of science. It's not afraid of exploration and discovery and innovation. Real truth can withstand, no matter what kind of scrutiny is thrown at it. It can withstand it. Real truth can. And after going a huge chunk of my life with just assuming something was true and letting my assumptions control my perceptions of myself and my ability to love myself, now I try a little harder to see the world as it really is. It's hard to do that even now, because when you go that long assuming things are true, it tends to make your brain that way. I have a real hard time. I fall for fake news all the time because I believe. So this looks like an official looking article. Must be true. I'm hardwired now to be gullible. It's hard for me I fall for lies. I'm easily conned. But I think that the desire to know what is true, I think it's important to know what's true. I think it's important, if you're going to believe in something in your one life that you get to have, that you make sure that it's true before you believe in it. I think putting up walls around yourself so you don't hear anything except what you want to hear isn't going to ever lead you to anywhere. You're not going to grow. As a Christian, you're not going to grow if you don't challenge your beliefs and question them and scrutinize them and go out in search of information. You're never going to really grow. You're going to live inside a little bubble your whole life, your little bubble. You listen to Atheist Experience and you listen to some of the people that call in. It's kind of sad how some of them live in this little bubble, and they can't even imagine the world in any other way except the universe according to Christianity, where there are angels and devils and God and heaven and hell. They can't even imagine the world in any other way than this indoctrinated reality they've been spoon-fed their whole life. I think it's a healthy thing to have an alternative message coming into you to hear. I think any truth that is afraid of alternative messages and other people's opinions that aren't the same as yours isn't really truth. If it cannot withstand questioning and doubts and research and exploration, if it has to hide behind walls and carefully guarded whatever lies, it's not really true. It isn't really true. If people are walking around assuming and never bother to get off their ass and try to prove that the God exists or that the Jesus character actually lived, they just want to assume and tell everybody else that it's real, like it's a fact, like it's a given, without first doing that research. I think it's a poison. I think it's a poison in our society. Look what look what's happening now that the religious right has seized our government. Look what's happening to our country. Look what these religions have done to the world already, to other places in the world, where there are concentration camps for gays. I think questioning is good. I think having an alternative message is good. I think if some Christian stumbles upon my channel and hears something that, oh my goodness, it might put a little seed of doubt in them, I didn't twist their arm. I didn't make them come to my channel, and I didn't make them watch my videos. And I'm sorry, but Brother John, it's my right to say what I believe and what I think. And yes, I do feel passionately about it, because walking around in a bubble for 35 years damaged me a great deal. If you don't believe me, go back and look at my old videos when I was suffering from depression and my face was all bloated because I was on antidepressants. Go look and see how close to suicide I was 8 years ago, or whatever it was. When I was first coming out of being a Christian and having my whole world fall apart, everything that I believed, finding out that it wasn't real, it almost destroyed me. It wasn't easy becoming an atheist. It wasn't, oh, now I get to revel in sin and run around and sin. No, it was heartbreaking and hard, and my identity basically cracked around my head, and I lost myself, and I have had to rebuild. And for the first time in my life, I can look in the mirror and I like myself. I feel good about myself. I don't feel like I have to cover my face with makeup and be ashamed that my lower teeth aren't straight, or that my hair looks like shit sometimes. You know, I don't care if I have a double, well, I do actually care about the double chin, but whatever. You know, I'm learning to laugh at the things I have no control over. I'm learning to laugh and take things a little less seriously in my life, because we only have one life. And that's the other thing. It's increased my ability to appreciate the time that I have and really work, because I know I don't have that much time, and not just assume that I have forever. Living in denial, fearing death, that's the first thing that left me. When I ceased to believe in God, I lost my fear of death. I lost my fear and my obsession and my constantly worrying about death. So anyway, that's it. I just wanted to say, one last note that I got from Brother John. He's telling me that he's a biblical scholar and a historian. This is supposed to impress me. That's like me saying, I'm a Harry Potter scholar and historian. Ooh. I've said this before in other videos, and I'll say it in this video. If I can reach out to somebody, even one person, with the rest of the time that I have on this world, and put a little seed of doubt in them, or shake up their life a little bit, or make them question just a little bit, or whatever that maybe gets them a little closer to breaking free of the chains, my life will have had meaning, and I will have done something of value with my life. And I will have helped somebody, and I think that's a good thing. So that's it. I just wanted to say what I think about some of the things I read in this guy's message to me. If you've been watching, thanks. Bye.
I am absolutely convinced that the main source of hatred in the world is religion. And I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt.
We share the same weather, winter or summer, May or September, the 4th of whenever. It's better together. Let's get together. Home is where